On today's episode of Stamp Your Mark, I'm joined by Daniel Khoury, co-founder of Trip. Since launching in 2019, Trip has become the leading CBD brand in the UK and Europe. Their mission is to bring CBD and that moment of calm to your everyday life, making it as accessible as possible in a variety of formats, from CBD drinks to oils. We discussed the CBD market, what it's like running a business with your wife, and where CBD fits within the wider wellness space. So, introducing Daniel Khoury.
In the cannabis plant, you have a variety of compounds, one of which is called CBD, which doesn't get you high. The other one is called THC, which is illegal and does get you high. And so we're championing the ingredient of CBD as a wellness ingredient. Now, of course, they come from the same plant, so it is essentially the same family, but which is why there's also a lot of confusion of we get messages from people being like, CBD saved my life. We get messages from other people like, wow, I'm high from this. It's like, no, you're not.
Daniel Khoury, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm actually very well because you brought us a load of gifts.
Yeah, they're good. I'm super excited to be here and super excited for you to try the products.
Brilliant. I'm excited too. I'm actually going to reach over and open one of the Trip CBD infused drinks, which is very exciting. And so whilst doing this, I guess my first question to you is, what is it that we are about to drink? What is Trip?
So these are our CBD drinks. Basically, we have a range. Well, first of all, I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Trip. We're a wellness brand. We offer a variety of CBD products, from CBD drinks, which is what we're just going to have, and CBD oils, which are tinctures. You basically put the oil under the tongue for a minute. And all of these products help in our mission to sort of help people find the calm in the everyday chaos, essentially. There's a very different, there are very different effects of CBD for different people. People use it for different purposes, but essentially, I personally use it to help with sort of stress, anxiety. I discovered CBD just before my wedding. So I co-founded the business with my wife. And 3-4 years ago, before our wedding, I recklessly tore my ACL 7 weeks before the wedding. Yes, I was in a lot of trouble because it was hangover football. So it was 100% my fault. There was no sympathy whatsoever. So tore my ACL, had to have knee surgery. It was a nightmare. We had organized a wedding abroad, so we had to. So it was hell, as you can imagine. Liv, my wife, was not impressed. So we started looking at different ways to sort of find something to help with the recovery, to speed it up in time, because everyone said I was going to be on crutches during the whole wedding. No. Walking down the aisle, yeah. So it was not great.
That is an uncomfortable thought. So crutches throughout the entire wedding, walking down the aisle.
Exactly. So my brother, who lived in New York at the time, said there's this thing, you should try CBD. It's booming here. A lot of athletes use it for recovery and for all sorts of stuff. And so we're like, okay, we'll give it a shot. Had an incredible recovery, like literally miraculous. Helped me sleep better, helped inflammation, loads of different stuff. And got to the wedding, managed to be like dancing the whole weekend, crutch free. So my wife almost forgave me from that. So yeah, it was good. That's how we discovered CBD. And we were absolutely shocked. We were like, what is this thing? How have we never heard of it? You look up online, you don't find anything. So it had already kicked off quite nicely in the US. The only thing is it tasted quite herby. So we didn't particularly like the taste, and the products you had at the time looked quite intimidating, I guess, in terms of branding. So we started using it on a daily basis. My wife was a lawyer. I was in finance, so nothing to do with FMCG and wellness at the time. We used it a lot more for anxiety every day, sort of like stressful jobs, more like daily wellness. Mm-hmm. That's how we really got into it. And then we were like, this stuff is amazing. We really need to do something about it. We left our careers, launched Trip. as you can imagine, our parents were thrilled, throwing all our savings into cannabis business.
Wow. What are your parents like? Are they quite traditional? Did they see that and think, okay, right, these guys just love weed?
No, it wasn't about weed. They understood it wasn't. It was more a wellness angle to it, right? That's what's super interesting. What we do is sort of destigmatizing the plant as well. So they were. I mean, are they traditional? Probably, but they sort of eventually understood and accepted, and now they, I guess, forgave us for doing it. But
brilliant.
But yeah, it was very, very stressful.
So I've got so many questions even on that. It's okay. So I mentioned, did they just naturally assume it's about weed, CBD, weed, cannabis, and so on? And from my perspective, CBD used to be something that was almost kind of very unsexy, and the only people who would use it and benefit from it were those who really knew about it, and they would take it very often. Whereas, if you look at Trip, the branding is sexy. Everything about it is almost appealing to a new audience of new people who are perhaps going to try it for the first time. But linking back to the cannabis, the actual weed sign, that must be one of the most recognizable symbols out there. So was there temptation to use that, or was it a case of we do not want to be associated with, weed and cannabis, but rather CBD and the good, benefits that come from that?
Yeah, I think the latter, and I think it's very important in the markets where we were launching. Europe is a completely different proposition to the US, where there is a cannabis culture. People understand the plant like really well. They understand what CBD is and they understand what THC is. So just going back a step, in the cannabis plant, you have a variety of compounds, one of which is called CBD, which doesn't get you high. The other one is called THC, which is illegal and does get you high. And so we're championing the ingredient of CBD as a wellness ingredient. Now, of course, they come from the same plant, so it is essentially the same family, but which is why there's also a lot of confusion of we get messages from people being like, CBD saved my life. We get messages from other people like, wow, I'm high from this. It's like, no, you're not.
Sit down, babes.
You're not high. You're high from other stuff. So in Europe, that's what's been amazing for us, is that educational bit. So we're, I guess, a bit the pioneers of this category in the UK and Europe, and people don't really understand. So there's a lot to explain to people what CBD does, dosage, all that kind of conversations, answering a lot of questions. So for us, branding and that messaging that we have from our products is crucial, right? You don't want to see a marijuana leaf on our products. You want to see pastel clean, sort of, I would say cool, cool looking products, trendy. Yeah. So
that's brilliant. And even just the way that you speak about this idea of having to educate the audience, that's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
To educate an audience on any type of new product or the nuances of a certain property.
Yeah.
That's a big thing to do. But even the way you describe it here, it's like, that was a really exciting thing.
Exactly. Especially the way, so things sort of worked out quite nicely for us for many reasons. One, traditional advertising ways aren't really allowed. So you're not allowed to advertise CBD on Instagram, Facebook, Google, etc. So you really have to think creatively, do it a bit the old-fashioned way, hope to have peer-to-peer recommendations, and to be honest, build a community. So we launched D2C first, and that was very important for us because of that connection we have with our community and sort of building a Trip community across the world, I guess, where you interact a lot more with them because people have so many questions about CBD. We get so many messages being like, oh, I had a drink, I didn't feel anything. Is that normal? That you have to explain everything. Then they come back, they're like, oh, I upped the dose and I feel great. It's saving my life. These kind of things. And it's so important to have that immediate interaction with your consumer as much as possible. Obviously, you can't have it everywhere, But that's been, it's been a blessing in a sense for us.
This is a great point then, because when you get to educate somebody on something, you then get to build trust and almost position yourself as the expert, whether it's an individual, or whether it's a brand. And in terms of community, one of my colleagues, Peter, he's obsessed with Trip.
Okay.
I think his exact words were, if I drink Trip, it's impossible to have a bad day or it's impossible to have bad thoughts or something like that. And
Amazing.
so I thought that was really cool. And so when you talk about educating people on the actual dosage, or, you know, I've had a drink and I didn't feel much from it, what's the answer to that?
So that's one of the most common questions we get. So I like to think of CBD as an ingredient, like you think of sort of alcohol or caffeine. They have like immediate effects, except CBD is a lot more subtle as an effect. A lot of people get placebo effects, others don't. There's all sorts of interacting things. And with dosage, there's not one dose that works for everyone. It's a very personal thing. Dosage, I mean, recommended dosage probably between 10 and 50. To be honest, some days, if I want a really good night's sleep or something, I take a lot more. Our drinks have 15 milligrams in them, which for some people, they have an effect from it, others don't, right? The effect also depends on so if you're stressed, then it's more likely to have an effect on you. If you're super chilled and super balanced, it's not going to make you even more balanced than that.
Yeah.
So it's like how CBD works. Everyone has a system that's called the endocannabinoid system, and CBD is a cannabinoid, right? So this system has receptors which CBD interacts with, and when your system's in balance, that sort of helps anxiety, inflammation, depending on what's in balance. CBD helps balance it out, essentially. So that's why it's very personal. It depends on the time of the day as well. If you are stressed, if you're not, etc.
That's brilliant. And that makes a lot of sense. I'm just in my head, I'm thinking like, I've had 2 sips of this right now and I like the taste first of all, but I feel very calm.
Yeah.
So is that the impact, or am I just placeboing hard right now?
A couple of sips, probably placebo.
Yeah.
But as long as it works, there's
yeah. But I'm excited to finish the entire drink and then see what I feel like in a few hours. And again, maybe placebo, but you know, you've very kindly brought a bunch of drinks here and I can find them. It feels like they're in a lot of places now, a lot of trendy places, which I'll touch on as well and ask about. But yeah, this could be my new keep calm strategy.
Definitely. And I think the drinks format for us was essential. So just going back to the story, I discovered CBD. It was a personal experience. I tore my ACL, which was a real pain. And I hope it doesn't take that for people to discover CBD. So we really wanted something accessible. And drinks was the best way to do it. Make it taste good, make it accessible. Even if some people, like you said, may think that after a couple of sips, they feel better. And then they discover the ingredient more and they research it and they work out their dose. So what our strategy has been around that in Europe, because it's a new market, just like I had no clue what CBD was at the time, I discovered it the hard way. And if I discovered it through a drink before, it would have been a lot easier. And my use of CBD is not for recovering injuries. My use is a daily wellness use. So is it for live. So yeah, our strategy is to introduce people through the drinks and then either trade them up to the oils or be with them throughout the whole journey of CBD, essentially.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's wicked. And so you mentioned that you're not allowed to do Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and there's a whole load of regulation around how you advertise a CBD product.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you knew that close to the very start of the business and therefore had to create a strategy which, you know, went around that. So what was the thinking that you and Liv were exploring at the time? So
one of the things you touched on is the stockists we were in. So we were very fortunate to launch in a lot of like cool places, trend forward places, which sort of help the narrative as well around CBD, like the sort of Selfridges, Equinox gyms, those kind of places. When people see you there, they definitely assume you're you're a sort of trendy product. You're not going to think they're going to get high from that as well. So that was very helpful for us, sort of launching in the cool places, which then allowed us to launch in even more mainstream places, etc.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, it's been that. Otherwise, like, we've been very lucky with our products being quite viral, I guess, between the pastel colors, the sort of like the excitement of people about the effect of CBD. Like the discovering CBD is quite, like, for me, it was like discovering caffeine, right? Like it really was. And for a lot of people, it is like that. So if that happens, you're like, okay, I'm going to post about this on Instagram or tell my friend about it and stuff. And that's what was really essential for us and helped us a lot. And we were very fortunate, I guess, from a timing point of view, that it was sort of early, but not too early, where people were talking about it. People had heard about it here. And then, that was very lucky for us.
It feels like this has come at a time where wellness is, now a big part of the conversation. If you look at whether it's corporates, startups, or just general life, people are really caring about their well-being and their mental health. And so people are more open to looking at potential solutions.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, CBD is getting, legalized in different countries. In some, cases, it's THC as well, which I know is now very different. But at the same time, it just feels like this whole kind of this perfect storm of the conversation around cannabis changing and people starting to understand it better, mixed with this new, potentially open type of consumer who really cares about their mental health. They care about their wellness. And it seems like it's coming at a perfect time. So that's really cool. On the partnerships front, and this is a question that a lot of, the entrepreneurs will be interested in. Did you have a hit list? Did you think Soho House, we've got to be there. Selfridges, we've got to be there. And then did you work through case by case, trying to think, who do I know who's there, or how can we convince them? What was that process like?
Yeah, exactly. So we imagined that we could have CBD any time of the day. So for us, I'd have CBD in the morning, at lunch, in the evenings. And we worked on the back of that. As you said, in Soho House, you can have it at lunch, you can have it as an alcohol replacement in the evening. In Selfridges, you can pick it up on the go after the gym for recovery. So exactly like that. And sort of premium places. So we wanted to position ourselves as a premium brand, because it's important for people to think of you as a premium brand and trust you in that sense, in such a new category. So that was essential. Then going back on what you mentioned, which is very important, about COVID and mental health. So that's been, there were a lot of negatives with COVID. We were about to launch. We launched just before COVID. We were about to launch, like, mainly in restaurants and bars and cool places, which were all shut, basically. So we had to switch strategy very quickly. But the sort of one of the blessings there was that, as you said, mental health with COVID has become, like, much more talked about. And that's what we do. We encourage people to talk about their mental health, right? And CBD helps with that. It sort of makes you a bit more relaxed, a bit more open to that. So COVID has definitely accelerated how much people realize that they have, realize that they can talk about mental health and have those issues. So in that sense, it's sort of gone in parallel to our mission. So it's good.
It's a really interesting point about the actual impact of having CBD. It's not just the actual drinking of it, or if you're taking it via, is it called pipettes?
Yeah,
pipettes. It's, when I've seen somebody take CBD, there's always a conversation that comes with it because it's new. So people say, oh, what's that? And say, oh, it's CBD. And then they'll have a response to that. And there's a whole conversation. So linking back to what you said earlier about community, and I mentioned my colleague, and the fact that I know he's obsessed with this and that everyone in the team knows, it's like there's a real sense of community. And then it's almost like your customers are then educating the future potential customers, which I think is just a really cool thing to lead and be a part of.
Definitely. And I think the fact that dosage is variable has been a very good thing for us, because you get people being like, oh my God, I took, like, CBD and it's, like, changed my life. And then someone else is like, but I took it and I didn't feel anything. That's so weird. It becomes like a conversation. And then that's why we get a lot of questions. They're like, oh, I'll ask the brand I bought from, like, how come this is happening? So that sort of helps as well, the word of mouth, I guess, in that sense.
And so when did you start? Where are you at now? And what does the future look like?
So we launched about 2.5 years ago. We launched mainly in the UK, had started exporting to a lot of European countries. Then COVID hit, we sort of pulled that back a bit. And then, so we now ship DTC to about 38 countries. We're physically present in most European countries and the UK. Where we recently launched in the US, in all Soho houses there, and we're launching in a bunch of other cool places there as well. So that's on a physical side. The plan is to, I guess, like I said, sort of stay with our community and consumer through the CBD experience. CBD experience mainly because we champion CBD for our mission of letting them find their calm. Like, for example, we have a range of merch which don't have CBD in them, but like the idea is like, okay, you come home, you put on a hoodie, it just like sort of helps you think of that moment of calm. And so yeah, long term we want to obviously grow our community, continue doing what we're doing, launch new products for different markets as well. So we're growing the team and thinking quite differently. The US market is a very different market to Europe. We need to recognize that as well. So yeah,
I think it's wicked. So in terms of building a brand, I was speaking earlier to a colleague about business models. And so we are a personal branding agency. It's service-based, it's people. And then you have tech companies, and then you have actual physical products. And one of the really great things is that you can properly build a brand. And I immediately think of Gymshark. So Gymshark, they sell clothes, full stop. But they now have this community around what it means to wear a Gymshark hoodie or t-shirt or shorts. And that community is so ready for whatever else they are given, essentially. So Gymshark could launch, protein powder. They could launch fitness apps. They could launch resistant bands. There's so much that they could then launch to an audience and a community who are just ready. And I see, that's the case here, right? So you've got different specific CBD style products, but then at the same time, you can go home and, chill on your cool hat and what else does a merch line include?
Exactly that. So that's where the sort of trust of the consumer, we were really made aware of that massive trust that we have with our community, because we launched a range of merch on our website and it went mad. We just sold out after 24 hours.
Whoa.
And we're not the reference on fashion, especially not myself, my wife maybe, but
I think your fashion is great.
Thank you. This is probably my wife who dresses me. But yeah. So that was a sort of a moment where, exactly like you said, Gymshark is a good example of, wow, we have this community that really trusts us, and it obviously puts a lot more pressure on you as well to deliver well. But yeah, it was a great moment.
What's the team looking like at the moment?
Yeah, so we were originally a family business only. So I launched a business with my wife. Her brother-in-law joined, his younger sister. So up until January, it was just family working out of our living room, which was a lot of fun, definitely. But we obviously had to grow the team. And since then, we've hired about 10 people. So we're about 15 now in the UK. We're hiring a team in the US as well, and a couple of people in Europe too. So growing very quickly, which is very exciting. But
brilliant.
Yeah.
Love that.
Good.
So we're a similar, I think we're 15 or 16 at the moment. But again, entirely different business model. I'd be really curious to know what your biggest challenges are at the moment. Less so from a kind of company perspective, more so from your own perspective as a manager, as a founder, as a leader.
Yeah, I guess growing the team, you just have to be respectful that you have a vision. So me and Liv had a vision, and the more you grow, there are some crucial things that have to stay in the culture, but you also have to adapt to a culture that's going to sort of grow itself in within the team, right? You can't sort of have everything your way, and people are going to do things differently, and you have to respect that. Differently can be better, can be worse. It really varies, but you sort of have to find that balance of doing that.
So it's how do you scale the culture as you scale the headcount, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, so we're still we still think of ourselves as a family business, right? The whole culture was just family up until a year ago. So, and all these all the new people that joined obviously joined the family essentially. So It's sort of a big Trip family now. Everyone's passionate. That's so important. I think that I've always wanted to do a business, but I never really never really thought of something I was passionate about to do, and then this happened, and we were passionate, and that's what's made it like so much fun. We have I work with my wife 24/7, so it has to be fun, right? And that's been really important for us. So for us, it's important that everyone's really passionate about what we're doing, because that's, I guess, the only way to really survive.
So you and Liv started it, and then you got some other family members, and then beyond family. When you started bringing in more family members, did you have a conversation at the start with them about, I don't know, expectations beyond your typical expectations? Did you have the conversation and say, look, at some point you may want to leave, or we may need to let you go? Like big conversations like that.
Yeah, of course. At the end of the day, I mean, from especially family members and even team members, like what's the most important for them, we completely respect, right? And you have to respect that with time, these things happen. Luckily, things have worked out very well, and everyone's very happy, I think.
Nice. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of challenging moments over the past 2.5 years that you can share, whether it's on the supply side, whether it's on the brand side?
We've had, I guess, supply side. We didn't really expect to grow as quickly as we have. It's really like exploded for us, which is great, but also causes stress. It's like, oh, I need to fulfill this, I need to fulfill that. That's probably been the main challenge, I would say. Otherwise, I mean, there's always the regulatory framework around CBD, which adds a different layer of challenges to the business, but it's also a challenge that allows you to be much more relevant than others, I guess. If you play it right, if you are the reference on CBD and stuff.
Essentially, good problems to have.
So far good problems. Yeah.
The idea of not expecting a certain level of growth and then seeing it month on month increase.
Yeah.
What was that like for you when you first started noticing how big this was going to be and how big it was getting?
We always thought it was going to be really big because of the personal experience first, and because like our passion for what we are doing. We always knew it was going to be big. The only difference was we didn't realize. So a lot of these channels, where we essentially opened a lot of these channels of distribution, right? We had to think very much outside the box. COVID hit, that, like supermarkets didn't touch CBD before. Now we're in a lot of major retailers on your high street. So we always knew we were going to get there because the research is there and regulation just catches up. The research and appetite from partners eventually gets there. It's just happened in a sort of timely manner quite nicely.
And where do you think Trip could be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and so on?
There are so many things we'd like to do. I mean, it could be anything. That's the beauty of a brand. It's like like I said, when we launched merch and it just sold out, it's like, wow, we could do anything. We can launch like Trip hotels, Trip airlines. There's so many things that the brand works with, essentially.
Yeah.
So
Imagine Trip Airlines.
right?
Like literally going from London to New York on a Trip plane.
Airline.
That would be wild. How would you deck the plane out to make it on brand?
Have a trip bar, definitely,
Of course.
somewhere. A few trip bars.
Love
Only
it.
trip bars, actually.
Only Trip bars. Yeah, that's wicked. Yeah, I was thinking like the mist and stuff around could like be CBD infused mist, but that's maybe a little bit too much for an airline.
To get the funding for that.
Yeah. Have you heard of the idea of blue sky thinking?
Yes, sort of.
Where it's like super rogue, crazy ideas when brainstorming, which you then bring down a notch and down a notch and down a notch. But what it allows you to do is, you know, in this conversation, it's like, oh, Trip Airlines, imagine that. And then somehow you could then bring it back down to earth, back down and find a really cool idea from that. I was just curious if you brainstormed in that way, but maybe not.
Not yet.
Not yet. So what does that process look like then when you're thinking about, you know, the product roadmap, product development?
I mean, at the moment, the products we have, there are still a lot of countries we want to expand in. So we've very much focused on the UK, and we've started to focus on Europe and the US, and we're going to see a lot of different challenges. There's different consumers there, a lot of different stuff. Then we also need to be reactive and see what our community wants as products. If our community seem to want different formats, we'll probably do that, essentially.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
And so what was it? I mean, what's the whole experience like of starting a business with your wife?
So far it's been amazing. We're still together, which is great. She's put up with me. No, it's been incredible, to be honest. We've been together for 13 years. Never in like my life I would have thought that we would be working together, and then this just happened. And yeah, it's been incredible. We have the best time. It's a lot of fun. What's
the difference in skill set? How do you complement each other?
So she's really good. I'm not that good. That's right. How we complement.
That's it on everything.
We do a lot of stuff together, I guess. Everything's so exciting and fun. So we actually sort of want to be involved in a lot of stuff, which is also going back to the question of growing the team. We sort of need to start letting go of different parts. Which is difficult. But up until now, we've definitely been very involved in everything, basically.
So you said that you would have never expected to go into business with Liv.
Yeah, we never really thought about it. We never used to talk about work much. Like I used to be in finance. She used to be a lawyer. We used to work our days and get home and never talk about work. So that's why it never really crossed my mind or her mind.
That's really interesting
to do that. Yeah,
I think about my relationship. I've been with my boyfriend Adam for 4.5 years now, and in terms of work skill sets, we have completely different skill sets. I like thinking and like coming up with ideas and speaking to people, and he likes speaking to people, but he also likes doing. So he loves the spreadsheets. I love being able to see the spreadsheets and so on. There's a completely different skill set there. So if we were to look at that alone, we could be a great business team. We could be great. However, I don't think that would do good things for our relationship. I just, because I know how obsessed I am already with business, with WOW, with the whole shebang. And I take a lot of that home with me, and then the people around me have to kind of almost selfishly deal with that. Selfishly from my perspective, they're dealing with it, and there's always a limit where I stop sharing those bits. But whereas if I was building that business with him, I feel like then I don't know if we'd ever switch off.
So that's very important. We don't really switch off.
Okay.
But the nice thing is, that's why I said you have to be passionate about, like in our case, we have to be passionate, and it has to be a lot of fun. And so far it's been a lot of fun. Things have gone well as well. I guess if things had gone badly, it may have not been as fun. So that's essential, especially that we don't switch off that much, I guess, because it's like a fun project. We want to talk about it all the time, right? That's how it goes. But yeah, I guess with time, if things start going badly, we will have to switch off.
But I like the way this is going just in this conversation. So there's a lot of honesty to just coming onto a podcast and being like, we don't switch off, full stop. So what does that mean? You know, on a Saturday, on a Sunday, what does that mean in terms of evenings?
The switch on part is not like we can switch off. It's like, to be honest, the first thing we did together was organize our wedding, and that was a lot of fun, and we worked really well together. And it was like, yeah, we talk about it all the time. And with Trip, it's been the same thing. So it's not like we can switch off if we need to. We can definitely take time off, but it's like a fun topic to talk about. And there's different, obviously, we're not going through a P&L spreadsheet on Saturday night. We talk about this celebrity posted about Trip. That's fun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So in that sense,
I'm with you.
there isn't a switch off. So yeah, there's different types of of work chat, I guess.
What advice would you give to individuals who are thinking about going into business with their partners?
Well, first, as I said, you really have to be really passionate about it. Then, to be honest, it really depends on the relationship of the two people. I don't think it can work for everyone, basically. So it really depends on the people, but the essential bit is to both really be passionate about that thing.
Yeah, brilliant. And this podcast is called Stamp Your Mark. It's all about leaving your mark on the world, leaving a legacy. What does that mean for you? What would you like your legacy to be?
So I guess the mark would be through Trip, right? Which very luckily for us, and that's also another reason why it's been so nice as a journey, because we get such amazing feedback from the community. So you really feel like you're leaving your mark on a daily basis, even though with a lot of people it doesn't work as a product. For those that it does, you can immediately see that you're sort of changing lives, which is really incredible. Like, it has more of an effect on other people than on me, for example.
Yeah.
And that's where you're like, wow, this is really helping these people, which is really nice, especially when you're working hard and throughout all the challenges of a startup. It's really nice to see that.
Yeah, a lot of products and a lot of services, there's impact, but perhaps not always on a real, genuine human level. Whereas if you know that you've created a product and it's legitimately helping people with their stress, legitimately helping with their mental health, and you've personally experienced that, and now you're seeing the ripple effect of millions of people experience the same thing, that must just be cool, feel cool.
Amazing. And yeah, it keeps us going.
Wow.
For that, it's great.
Amazing. Final question from me. What are you most excited about?
What am I most excited about? I'm already really excited as I am. I'm very excited about this. Yeah, I mean, I've at every phase of Trip, I'm really excited about the next phase. We've been growing a lot and expanding in a lot of countries. I'm really excited about this phase of growing the team and getting people to do what we've been doing for the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years. So yeah, new markets, new opportunities,
brilliant,
etc.
Well, I'm buzzing for you. Really, really exciting. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great. Really, thanks.